like I can't figure out like what angle is best. So you guys are gonna have to bear with me while I still figure all this stuff out. About a year ago, I decided to flip a lot of my patterns that I would start on my right hand to my left hand. After sort of watching myself and kind of being over my own playing, I noticed that just by switching out my lead hand or flipping the whole pattern to left hand lead, it completely changed the way it sounded. And I was really excited to get started because I was over my own playing and I wanted to learn some new stuff. It wasn't completely new because it was still based on the vocabulary that I already had, so I wasn't necessarily learning different patterns, just the same patterns, and I was increasing the flexibility that I had with said patterns. Then I got heavy into Instagram and started to watch all these guys that did it really well. David Kola, Justin Scott. A year later, almost, I decided to post my progress. I'm not one for posting licks per se, but I don't know, they're fun sometimes. So I decided to do it, and lo and behold, David Kola, who I met at NAMM, is like, hey, you know that even pattern? Why don't you make it odd? And I'm like, okay, dude. So, huge fan of his playing, and I think I knew what he was talking about. I think he wanted me to change all of the 6-note patterns into 7-note patterns and 4-note patterns into 5, or is it 6 to 5? So my overall, when I stack a 8 and 6-note pattern, I would get a 14-note pattern. That would become a 13-note pattern, and the 12-note patterns would become 11-note patterns. And I'm like, dude, okay, I've been doing this for a long time, so. But I guess I haven't done this in the left-hand lead context. So 2 days later, I finally get a chance to sit back at the drum set again and it doesn't go so well. Now, this is something that he's been doing for a long time, and he sounds amazing at it. He can manipulate the inner dynamics so well and pull out certain things, and I'm sitting there just trying to get the pattern right. Why in the world in 2019, after nearly 20 years of playing the drums, is this pattern specifically giving me so much trouble? I have been stacking patterns for 12 years. I've been playing single strokes and double strokes for way longer. I am at a smaller kit, so it's not like I'm moving my hands around. Is it just that I suck? Do I need to just throw in the towel now because I can't do something so simple, especially since I've done things like that in the past? And well, the answer is no. I don't suck. At least I don't suck like at everything else that I do just because I can't do that one other thing. So I watched Nate, the 80/20 drummer, his video on what to do when you feel like you suck on the drums. Unfortunately, I don't remember the name of the video, but I don't think the name of the video is important unless I guess you want to find it. But it's, for the most part, it's the video that I've always wanted to make, and I'm kind of super jelly that he got to it first because it's amazing. For one, it almost to a T talks about everything that I'm about, everything that I felt this year specifically. After going to NAMM and seeing a lot of impressive musicians and meeting a lot of impressive musicians, and all of a sudden those impressive musicians started following me on Instagram, I became hyper aware and hyper self-conscious about my playing, which is something that if you watch me and you read my posts, you've probably picked up on. But here's the thing. Being in that environment, you're faced with a few options. Number one, you can quit because you don't think that you're going to be good enough. 2, you can play despite that feeling and almost gain this perpetual resentment of yourself and feel like you're just playing from a state of regret all the time because you don't sound like the person you just saw, or you should have practiced more, or you should have practiced the other thing. And that's dumb, because watch this video, and while you're at it, listen to the Drumeo Gab episode of the Drumeo Gab podcast, because I feel like those 2 things specifically helped me with my mindset so much that I'm almost not necessarily in the same place I was this year, at least with the self-conscious tip. See, what I'm working on right now, more so than the drums specifically, is practicing how to turn the critic off. Like, the critic is extremely important, especially when you are trying to learn and master the drums. But when you're trying to play the drums, when you're trying to play music, when you're interacting, that overthinking, sort of living in a state of constant regret, as I've found, is counterproductive, and only really not just sabotages the experience, but it can work outward to sour your relationships with other musicians. Now, if you have a problem with the way that your band played and the way that, you know, somebody's not listening, or you feel like, you know, people are just making mistakes, then, you know, that's another topic. I'm talking about a resentment that comes with being uncomfortable with your own skin. There has to be this balance between taking responsibility for not being the best you that you can be, while also understanding that you have to meet yourself where you are. The moral of the lesson that I thought about today, specifically when I was going over a pattern that I couldn't play, is that what you can't play does not in any way undermine all of your hard work or what you can play. Because if you've been doing this for any amount of time, you're good at something, and you should always remember that. And if you're not good at something yet, just keep at it, you will be. I've had quite a few of you guys ask me about my process, and the only reason that I really do all this stuff is to help you guys. So if I feel like, let me fix this. It's not even plugged in. How am I doing a mini episode without my... Am I even going to be listening to anything? Sorry. I got this question, and... let me read it real quick just to make sure. How on God's green earth do you shed out these hemiola modulation tuplet-ass grooves like butter? I know it's just hours of practice on each one, but is there a specific type of practice for this kind of exercise? And it's referring to the 13-note linear thing that I was working on the past couple of days. The answer is yes, I do have a process, but it's less of a, hey, how long does it take to get a specific sticking, and more of how similar is it to something that I've done before. I think that things come easier when they're related to things that are already in our vocabulary, rhythmically or physically or whatever. And I've been practicing the 13-note groupings for a long time. Hell, I've been practicing a lot of groupings for a long time. And the thing that I use to do that is what I call my rhythmic cheat sheet. Now, this is exactly why I feel like it's a cheat sheet, because I'm not having to learn how to group 13, because I've already dealt with it before, and I've dealt with it in a bunch of different contexts. So this is a slight overview of the way that I work on this stuff, and how I get the maximum flexibility from each one of these rhythms. And it's just basically in the application. So at first, what I might do is just try to play the thing and count out loud. So one of my favorite groupings of 13 is 2 groups of 4 and a group of 5, which on my cheat sheet sounds like this. 1, 2, 3, 4, So that's the grouping, and what I'll do next is fill in that space. So I'll fill it in with bass drum and maybe keep the quarter note on the hi-hat. So the same alternating singles, they were alternating singles, that I just did, I'll do with filling in the kick. So something like this. And so on and so forth until it resolves, or until the end of the phrase, either 2 bars, 4 bars, 8 bars, whatever. Because I've worked on this in so many different subdivisions, stuff like 8th note triplets, for instance. So here are my 8th note triplets. Same pattern in 8th note triplets. And so the relationship becomes established that you're playing 3 here and then the 13 between the snare and the kick. And so if I can maintain that relationship but shift my perspective, all of a sudden I have a dotted 8th thing against this 13 note pattern. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, right? The same thing with quintuplets. So you have the quintuplet 1, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4. And then you start the stack. And so every time that you sort of think about another rhythm here, the relationship between your hi-hat and the linear pattern remains consistent. And so you can recontextualize all of this away from a linear type of thing to more of a coordinational timekeeping type of thing, where I'll play something like a jazz ride, like a flat jazz ride. Sorry, I know it sounds funky. I have a big fat snare drum on here to kind of keep the volume down because I'm only using one microphone. Whatever, you guys don't care. And so now the left hand is playing the 13. I'm still filling in with the kick, but now I'm playing time with my right hand, and I'm playing 2 and 4 with the hi-hat. Now let's see if I can bring back that dotted 8th thing from before. As I said, the relationship is still going to be the same. Maybe to get used to this, start with the left hand playing all the snare drum notes, filling in with the kick, and then try the 3 dotted 8th thing. Remember, the time is here. So 1, 2, 3, 4. So you can do this with whatever ostinatos that you feel comfortable with. If you start to learn the 5, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, obviously, 1, 2, 3, 4, something like that. Anyways, sorry if the audio is kind of peaky. I just wanted to get this out as soon as I could because I don't like not actually sharing information. I'm trying not to be the type of person that just lets what I'm doing be mysterious and whatever. If I can and if time permits, man, I'll show you guys everything. Just, you know, hit me up for a Skype lesson every once in a while so I can get my bills paid.